at the fringe roster spot that he's at, that yes, the media attention does hurt him at that point, but it's the same not being gay. Let's just say, let's use wrestling since we just mentioned that. Let's say everybody knows I'm a pro wrestler. Let's say that I'm a marginal 53rd, 54th level NFL prospect, and they go, you know what? But he monkeys around with that pro wrestling in the offseason, and I don't know if I want the attention that comes with that guy. So because of that, I'm going to choose this guy instead of that guy. So that may be too much because they go, you know what? I don't want the trouble that comes with that for a guy that, maybe he'll gun on some special teams for me, but other than that, he's not really going to contribute a whole lot to this team versus the trouble that he's going to get because I'm going to spend 5 minutes at every press conference getting asked questions about the 53rd guy on my roster. And from that aspect, it's distracting. So I don't think it has to do with the gay part of the attention, just the attention part of the attention.
Yeah, that's true. I can't say that he didn't have a fair chance.
Right.
I think Fisher gave him a fair chance.
I agree with you. Fisher said, hey, man, I wanted the guy to make the team. I was pulling for him. And he doesn't exactly say that all the time about people,
Nope. He sure doesn't.
He's a pretty straight shooter. I truly believe that if Fisher wanted him on that team, like if he thought that he was one of the 53 best players, Jeff Fisher is one of the coaches in the NFL that I absolutely believe would have not cared one bit what you do when you go home. I truly believe he would have put him on that team. What do you think?
I agree.
You know him.
I just don't think I don't think that I think something went on between the time he started in camp and the last couple of days. I don't know if they felt he was not giving 100%. And Fisher did it as a wake-up call for the young man to say, hey, we don't really care about your entourage. We care about whether or not you can play in this league.
Yep. I agree. At the end of the day, that's it. And I saw Vashon, perfect way to wrap it up. If you want to prove yourself, if you can't catch on with the practice squad, then go to the CFL. Go play football somewhere else. And when the CFL season's over, if you still haven't found a team, go to the Arena League and go play there and just keep playing football until somebody realizes they made a mistake. Because in the NFL, it's all of these general managers' job to dig out talent, and if you've got it and you go out there and put it on tape, somebody will find you, and they could care less what the media story is with it. Go out there and prove that these guys made a mistake. We hear it every year. Guys that were blown away or forgotten about or put on the shelf and cut for this year and that year, 3 years in a row, and if they want it bad enough, they go find a way to get it, and he'll find a way to get it, or 5 years from now, he'll just be a trivia question.
That's right. And, there's no team in the NFL that could afford to take a flyer on somebody with, quote-unquote, an entourage. Let's put it like that.
I think that's, pretty much the best way to put it is what Vashon said. Go play football. If you want to play football, go keep playing football. And we'll see if he does. That's it. We'll see if he does, like I said. And if not, we won't, this probably won't come up very often too many times, and I just think it's too easy for too many people to go, oh, it's because he's gay. No, it's not. I don't believe it is. I don't believe that it is, the media attention because of the situation, maybe, but it's not because he's gay. I truly believe our society is beyond that. It was a football decision at the end of the day.
I agree.
It is.
I agree.
And it's an easy copy. It's easy news for somebody to say otherwise,
Yeah, that's a quick 1,000-word article for you to go and say.
1,000.
For you to go and dig all this stuff up and say, well, he didn't get in because ... Exactly. I find that ridiculous because the guy proved himself by being drafted in the first place and proved himself with a college career.
And you know what? For a lot of people, and I'm talking about hundreds, let's see how many were cut this past weekend. So for about 1,000 people, every NFL season, they do exactly what Michael Sam did. They proved the point by getting themselves to a training camp and getting themselves on a roster for 6 weeks, and they just weren't good enough to make the final 53 around the NFL. There's 1,000-plus players every year who fit that category. They were great in high school, great in college, good enough to practice with the pros, and just couldn't get past that, and whether you fall in that category or not depends on right now. what are you doing, Michael Sam? Are you going to work out? Are you going to go find a place to play football? Then you'll be just fine. And if not, then you won't be. That's all. You know what? That's it. And then people will stop talking about it. I want to stop talking about it because, really, I mean, we could be talking about it. Chris Ogbonnaya got cut. We could spend the next 20 minutes talking about why he got cut from the Browns. But point being, they decided that they wanted to go with somebody else, and he didn't fit the team. But, you know, we're not having that discussion about him or any of the other 20 players that were cut by the Browns or the Steelers or the Ravens or every other team in the NFL.
Right.
You know? So
That's
let's move on to that because the cuts were done this weekend and things went down. And you know what? Before that, though, the other thing that I wanted to touch on with you, just at the end of last week, Roger Goodell sends out his letter around the NFL, talks about immediately changing the punishments for domestic violence. And on the surface, what he said sounds great. Although John McMullen, he's going to join us tomorrow, he's already said he's got questions about the actual fulfillment of the quote-unquote lifetime ban and how much court scrutiny that would be able to sustain once it's actually attempted the first time. But it didn't take long for somebody to test this thing because it took exactly 3 days before the first player was arrested on a domestic violence charge, and he hit on all of the key points during this thing that was laid out by the NFL. Ray McDonald from the 49ers arrested for domestic violence against his fiancée, who is also pregnant, and that was specifically included as a more harsh mitigating factor for the punishment in the NFL policy is if the victim is pregnant. But, you know, right away, an early test here, the NFL does not necessarily have to wait until this case is adjudicated for them to do something. If they felt it was egregious enough, they could actually apply the suspension now. But looks like the first test of the policy came very quickly, and it's going to be interesting to see how quickly and decisively the NFL handles it.
Yeah, no question. And, you know, the coach came out and said, you know, he has no room for tolerance on this, that it's a zero-tolerance situation. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't think McDonald will be back this season. So that, to me, leads me to believe that they are not going to play him this year.
And, you know, but looking at the policy, too, they talked about the minimum 6-game suspension for the first offense. But when there's mitigating circumstances, including up to and including use of a weapon, choking, or when the act is committed against a pregnant woman or in the presence of a child, that the first punishment could be much harsher than 6 games. So perhaps right away the hammer comes down on Ray McDonald to make a point. You know, perhaps he gets a 1-year banishment, boom, right away for the first one because of the mitigating circumstances.
Yeah, and I think that would be a good way to set the tempo because if you read it, and again, everybody read his letter, he feels that, you know, he made a mistake and that it was his fault. He did not really examine the situation close enough. I don't know how you could ignore it and say you didn't examine it close enough, but, you know, having met the man, I know that he's got a lot of things on his mind. I'm sure, you know, whether or not Ray Rice punched his girlfriend out or not is not, you know, the first foremost thing on his mind these days.
Well, that's fine, but at that time, he still should have done something much more.
Right.
Which,
no, I
and he's
agree.
going to get that thrown in his face too when he nails McDonald here for a year or something like that, and then people are going, "Wow, Ray Rice." But hey, it's not retroactive. They announced that with this new policy is that, you know, you won't be able to change the punishment for Ray Rice. But here's something I did like about the policy that didn't go very highly reported is there is a retroactive part of it, as in it does not necessarily has to have happened while you were an NFL player. Let's say while you're in college, you got a domestic violence charge or one of the charges that fits this policy before you entered the NFL. If you were to have some charges against you in the NFL, they will be considered a second offense, as in that first one will be held against you, even though it didn't necessarily happen while you were a part of the NFL. So if you already have the history, you will be treated as a repeat offender, whether you've been punished before by the NFL or not, which I like that aspect of it as well.
Oh, I agree. And what they're doing there is they're telling guys that if you expect to play in this league, you know, if you expect to be a professional player in the National Football League, you need to live a good, you know, a well-behaved life from the moment you graduate high school, if that's believable and possible.
Well, not just that. I mean, it's more than just that. I mean, I believe that, and I'm one of them people like Coach Harbaugh, man. Domestic violence to me, especially when you're a highly trained athlete, a larger than life athlete with, your body is your tool. To me, you have even more of a responsibility at that. I mean, you could be the scrawniest guy on the beach and hitting a woman is wrong, but to me, it becomes even more egregious when you're a weapon, when your body is a trained weapon. You know what I mean? And that's the way I look at it when you look at an NFL-type player.
Oh, I agree. I don't disagree with that. You have to, a lot of the boxers, same thing with the boxers many, many years ago. Their hands were registered as weapons, and, these guys needed to avoid getting into bar fights and such. That's why a lot of them didn't go out drinking.
Oh, yeah, for sure. All right. Let's get down to the business of some football, not the business of the legal part of football. Browns made their final cuts. Was there anything that surprised you in the final decisions for the roster of the Browns? I know they let go of a few people that, like I mentioned, Obaniah, he had hung around for a while here, survived some regime changes, and he's very versatile, but him and Gray were both cut for the traditional fullback in Ray Agnew, and I like him. I thought one of the telling things about the Browns' final roster is that I believe it's 23 of the final 53 undrafted at the time they came into the NFL. Clearly shows the type of players, as far as the digging up of players from different places that the Browns roster is made up of. But can you recall hearing a breakup of a roster with that much undrafted talent?
No, I was surprised about Chris Obaniah. I really thought he was going to be around and be on the team. In fact, I thought he was setting himself up for an extended career here, so hopefully he catches on with somebody else in the next couple of days, or if somebody gets hurt week 1, he gets a phone call next week. I would like to see that. Now, again, I think Ray Agnew is a good player, and if you look back at what he did, in college, this is the perfect situation for him. He's 5'10". He's a little bowling ball guy at 247. He'll be hard to bring down. I'm looking forward to seeing him in this offense.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Leon McFadden, no surprise to me, cut loose. Another of last year's draft picks that just did not pan out for the Cleveland Browns. And you look at we talk about bad drafting since 99, even just over the last few years. I mean, you go back to 2010, Joe Hayden's the only guy here. I mean, you can just keep on moving. There's such a small percentage of the guys, but here you saw McFadden. That was a higher draft pick that was literally wasted. I think he signed with the Jets over the weekend after the Browns let him go. But, 12 defensive backs. That was a place that the Browns really loaded up. Are you surprised? I know they say, with the passing league, they wanted to go that deep, but are you surprised that they went that deep at defensive back, 12 guys?
No, I'm not. I'm surprised at the number, but I'm not surprised at the depth. I figured they would have 9 or 10. Most teams carry 8 or 9. I thought they would carry 10. I think with 12, I think what they're doing is they're saying, we know people are going to get hurt, and we know guys can be plugged in on special teams, and that's what they're doing with that.
And obviously, they value defensive backs as a high part of Coach Pettin's offense here. So interesting to see. Just interesting to see the breakdown. They went with the low number of wide receivers, as they've got 5 right now. It stands at 5 on the roster here. Burleson did not make the final cut, which I wasn't really surprised. If it had been a traditional camp, he wouldn't have made it, no doubt. But I thought maybe because there was no wide receivers that he would. But they decided, you know what? We're going to go with a couple of young guys here, and we're going to see who comes loose off of some other squads. And you know what? Speaking of, they didn't go with Burleson. Is there anybody out there that you could see the Browns bringing in for a tryout this week? I know we saw a few names. Vincent Brown was really one of the only ones that intrigued me. Meacham from New Orleans a little bit, but I don't know about him. I don't know what he's got left in the tank. But Vincent Brown perhaps intrigued me. Not a whole lot of interest to me in a lot of the guys that were out there. But what do you think? Or what do you think the Browns, are they going to add anything else here before Sunday and in the wide receiver pool?
I would have thought Brown also, especially with his experience in different types of offensive schemes. But, if Pettin and Farmer think they've got it, and they're going to be able to deal with it, and that these guys are the guys,